We continue now at the top of Daf Samech Beis Amud Aleph in Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 62a. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought a brisa which brought the machlokus between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda in terms of whether one is chayev for tamun by eish. Again, Rabbi Yehuda says one is chayev for tamun by eish, and the Chachamim say that is not the case. And the brisa now qualifies by medavarim amurim. When is this true? B'madlik b'soch shalo. This machlokus exists if the person first makes the fire in his own property. V'holcha v'dolka b'soch shel chaver. Then it goes and it lights in his friend's property. Aval madlik b'soch shel chaver. But if he makes the fire inside his friend's property, so then mishalim kol ma shahaya b'sochos. Then he has to pay everything that is concealed within the gadish, everything that's concealed within the stack. The point over here is that everybody agrees in a situation where he actually lights the fire on his friend's property, so then he is chayev on tamun. And Rashi explains, Divrei HaKol Mishalem Masha Besocho, everybody agrees you pay what is within it. Rava Mitaris Lalataime became Shadarkon Lahatman Negadish. Again, we had a machlokas Amoraim before, so Rashi is just pointing out Rava, who says you're not chayev on all tamun, will say that what we mean to say is any vessels that it's normal to conceal them, it's normal to hide them inside the stack. So again, that's what everybody agrees you are responsible for. And the Gemara continues, Umod Rabbi Yehuda l'chachamim. The Brisa continues, Rabbi Yehuda admits to the chachamim, b'mashel makom lechaver. Let's say a person lends an area of his property to his friend, lahagdish gadish, that he says you can use this area to put a stack of grain, v'hikdish v'hitmin, and so then he does that, he puts a stack of grain there, and he conceals something within the stack of grain. And the idea over here is that when you're lending a person space in your property, you are taking responsibility, but you had no idea there was something concealed. So in that case, even Rabbi Yehuda agrees, she'in mishalim ela d'mei gadish bilvad, that he only has to pay the value of the actual stack. He doesn't have to pay for that which is concealed. And Rashi explains again, Rabbi Yehuda admits in that case, ela d'mei gadish, he only has to pay for the value of the stack of grain. Im heviru bal hasad, meaning if the owner of the field caused a fire and burned it, the lo kavel oleh ela nitirusa de gadish, because he only accepted upon himself watching over a gadish. He didn't accept it to watch over that which was concealed. And the Brisa continues, lahagdish chitin v'higdish sa'orin. Let's say the bal hasad gave permission to the person to put a pile of wheat over there, but instead he put a stack of barley. Or sa'orin v'higdish chitin, he gave him permission to put a stack of barley, but the person put a stack of wheat. Chitin v'chipon b'sa'orin, or he gave him permission for a stack of wheat, but he covered the stack of wheat with barley. Sa'orin v'chipon b'chitim, or let's say he gave him permission for a stack of barley, but he covered the stack of barley with wheat. She'enu meshalim ela d'mei sa'orin bilvad. In all of these cases, he only has to pay the value of the barley. He does not have to pay the value of the wheat. Either it's because the person was not aware that there was wheat, or it's because the person did not accept responsibility on the wheat. And Rashi explains, chitin v'chipon b'sa'orim, in a case, let's say he gave him permission for wheat, but then the person put wheat there and covered it with barley, afal b'shenosin lo rishos l'chitin, even though in that case he gave him permission to put wheat there, eino mishalim el sa'orim, but in this case he's only going to pay for barley. The amarle lo ra'isi el sa'orim, because he says, I only saw barley. Lefikach lo nizharti b'hen kol kach, that's why I wasn't so careful. So again, that's why in all of these cases, he's only going to pay the value of barley. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava, Rava says, Hanosein dinar zohav li'ish, if a person gives a golden dinar to a woman, V'yamar lon, he says to her, he's zohari bo shel kesefu, he says, be careful with it, it's a dinar of silver. Has he caused it, so if she damages it, she actively damages it, Meshalemes dinar zav, so then she has to pay for the golden dinar, even though he told her it was shel kesef, she has to pay for the zav. Mishum da Amar la, because he can say to her, my haveloch gabe da'az, can say, what are you doing over here that you're damaging it? You're actively damaging it. However, pasha bo, but if let's say she was just negligent with it, and that's what caused the damage, Mishalem Mishal Kesef, so then she just pays for what she was told, which is silver, the Amrle, because then she could say to him, Netirusa de Chaspa Kavili Olai, I accepted upon myself to watch over something that was silver, Netirusa de Dahavalo Kavili Olai, but I didn't accept upon myself to watch something that was gold. And the Gemara continues, Amrle Rav Mordechai le Rav Ashi, Rav Mordechai said to Rav Ashi, Otun b'derava masnisula, you learn this as a teaching of Rava, what we just said above. Anon mi masnisa pshitolan, but we learn it, we understood it from the Brisa, because the Brisa said chitin v'chipon b'saor, and let's say he gave him permission to put wheat, and he put wheat there, but he covered it over with barley, or saor, and he gave him permission for barley, v'chipon b'chitin, but he covered it over with wheat. Eino mashalim elo d'mei saor bilvad, so he only has to pay for the value of barley. Alma, so we see from that case, he gave him permission for barley, but now the person thought it was wheat because he covered it over with wheat. He's only responsible for barley. Alma, so we see Amar Le, that he can say to him, Nitirusa desari kavili ole, that all I accepted upon myself was to watch over barley. Hachanami, over here also the same is true. Amar Le, she can say to him, Nitirusa de dahava lo kavili ole, I did not accept upon myself to watch over gold. And Rashi explains, "My havalach gabe da azkase biyadayim. Why did you damage it actively? Shesarfaso, that either she burned it or shishlachtu liyam, or you threw it into the sea. Velo dami lamashil makam lachaver lahagdish saor and vehigdish chitim. It's not similar to the case above, where a person lends out an area to put barley and then the person puts wheat. The amrun lael eno mashalam el demei saorin that we say over there, you only pay for barley, because over there it was a situation of not watching it properly. The maver lo mazik biyadayim, who causing a fire and the fire burns it up. That's not actively damaging it. Ela poshe, that's just negligence. The fire goes out on its own. Mipi hamora, Rashi says that's from his Rebbe. But pashabo, but if she was negligent, she didn't watch it properly, so then again, she only took upon herself a certain level of shmira. You learn this as a teaching of Rava. We can learn it from the Brisa. Saorin v'chipon b'chitin. Again, if he gave permission for barley and the person covered the barley with wheat, no sin lo rishus lahagdish saorin v'lo chitin. Again, he gave permission to put saor in there and not wheat. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav says, Shamis Milsul Rabbi Yehuda. I heard something in terms of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Again, Rabbi Yehuda says that Taman Ba'esh is Chayiv, and I heard something about that, V'lo Yadana Mahi, but I don't know exactly what I heard. Amar Shmuel said, V'lo Yoda Abba My Shmiel Eilo Rabbi Yehuda, but does Abba's a reference to Rav, do you, Rav, not know what you heard in terms of Rabbi Yehuda? The Mechayiv Al Nizkei Taman Ba'esh, because again, Rabbi Yehuda says that when you have damages of concealed items by fire, that the person is Chayiv, and also Takonas Nigzol Be'isho, and they make a Takonas Nigzol by a case of fire as well. What that means to say is that if somebody steals, if somebody's a Gazlan and steals from somebody else, so the Nigzal is allowed to take an oath, he can take a shvua that this is what's stolen from me, and then the robber has to pay for that. And the same thing is true over here. Let's say a person makes a fire and it consumes something that is concealed. We don't know exactly what it was anymore. It's already burned up. The person who was damaged can take a shvua, this is what was damaged, and then he can collect from the person who did the damage. And the Gemara continues, Boy Ameimar asks the following question, Asu takonas nigzal b'mosor, oh lo, did they make the same takona by a mosor or not? A mosor is somebody who gives over somebody else to the government. Now the government has confiscated something, so again, can he take an oath in terms of what was taken, and then he can collect from the person who gave him over? And so the Gemara says, now according to the one who says that we don't judge cases of garmi is a kind of indirect damage. That's what happened over here. The person essentially told on the other person to the government. That's a case of garmi. So if you hold that you don't have to pay by garmi, so lo tiboilach, so that's not even a question. The mesiris nami lo daininan, because mesiris is not something that you can even judge in court. You can't collect from the person anyway, even if you know what was confiscated by the government. Alakiti boilach, but rather, when is it a question to you? Aliba demand amar daininan dina de garmi. It's according to the one who says that we do judge garmi. So then that's the question. Also takonas nigzal b'masr de mishtaba v'shakil. Although do we make this takonas nigzal by a masr that the person can just take an oath and collect or not? And the Gemara says teku. The Gemara leaves it as a question. And Rashi explains, Asu takonas nigzal bi'isho ki hechi detiknu rabbanon lenigzal lishava. Just like the rabbanon say that a nigzal can take an oath, Kamma gozlu, exactly what was stolen, v'yitul, and collect. To Tanan Mesechet Shavuos, it's a Mishnah Mesechet Shavuos, Elo nishbain v'nolan asachar v'anigzal. The following people can take an oath. One of them is a nigzal. Kach tiknu bi'isho she'ishava mahitrin v'yitul. The same thing by a situation of fire. A person can say what he concealed, and then he can take a shvua that this is what was concealed, and he can collect. Aliva demand amar lo dainin and dina de garmi. Again, according to the one who doesn't judge garmi, beperak hagozel umachil. That's later on in perak hagozel umachil. And the Gemara continues, how Gavro devotash bechaspisa dechavri. There was a person who kicked the safe of his friend. There was something in the safe. Shadya ben Nahara, and then it fell into the river. It was lost. Asa Mari, so the owner of the safe came. V'yamar hachi v'hachi havile begavo. He said, this is what I had inside the safe. I should be paid back. Yosef Ravashi v'kama ayin bei. Ravashi sat and he investigated the matter. Ki agav namai. In that situation, do we believe the person who's making the claim or not? Amar le Ravina le Ravacha brei derava. Ravina said to Ravacha brei derava. V'yamri lo Ravacha brei derava le Ravashi. Some say it was Ravacha brei derava said to Ravashi. Lav hainu masnisan. Isn't that exactly what we learned in our Mishnah? The Tanan, because we learned in the Mishnah. Modim chachamim le Rabbi Yehuda. That the chachamim admit to Rabbi Yehuda. If a person sets fire to a building, you have to pay everything that's inside the building. Because it's normal for people to put things in the building, and so therefore put things in their houses, and so therefore the same thing over here. It's normal to put money inside a safe, and so therefore the person should be believed that there was money in the safe. Amar Le said to him, if the claim over here was that there was money in the safe, of course that's true, we would believe him. Indeed, that is the case. But over here, the Katoin Marganisa, he's actually claiming there was a pearl inside the safe. What's the halacha in that case? Do people people put pearls inside a safe, which normally holds silver, olo or not, take when the Gemara says take, the Gemara leaves that as a question. Amar le Rav Yemer le Rav Ashi. Rav Yemer said to Rav Ashi, Toin kasa de chaspa bebiramai. What if a person, again, someone sets fire to a building, and the person who owns the building says that I had a silver goblet in there? What's the halach in that case? Amar le said to him, Chazina, we have to see. Inish amidhu, if he's a wealthy person, it's like kasa de chaspa, who would have a silver goblet. Inami, or inish mehemna, who is a trustworthy person. The mifka the inshi gabe, that people would deposit such an item by him. Mishtava v'shakal, so then he can take the oath and he can collect. V'lo, but if he's not such a person, lav kol kamine, we're not going to believe him that he has such an expensive item in that situation. Amar le Ravada, Breda Ravavi le Ravashi, Ravada, the son of Ravavi, said to Ravashi, Ma ben gazlan lechamson. What's the difference between a gazlan and a chamson? Amar le said to him, Chamson yohiv demei. A chamson is somebody who takes something, but he pays for it, he gives money, he forces a sale. Gazlan lo yohiv demei, but a gazlan doesn't give any money. Amar le said to him, yohiv demei, if a person gives money, chamson karislei, do you call that person a chamson? V'amar Ravuna, but Ravuna said, Taluya v'zavin zvine zvine, that if somebody forces someone to sell him something, that sale is considered to be a good sale. So that's not a chamson if it's a good sale. And the Gemara says, Lokash, it's not difficult. Hadu amar rotzani. In one case, it's when the person who sold it, he said, I agree. He was willing in the end. He said rotzani, so then already it's a good sale. But hadu amar rotzani. But in the case where we say it's a chamson, where it's not a good sale, that's if the person does not say rotzani. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Beis Amud Beis.